Hello, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of One Vision, the FinTech Fuse. This is Theo, your host for the episode. Joining us today is a lovely friend I've known for, almost a decade now, and a returned guest to the podcast, Paolo Nasciso, a wonderful, wonderful, thought-provoking author and a builder amongst everything else, as well as advisor. So we'll talk about all of that. Welcome to the show, Paolo.
Thanks, Theo. It's great to be here again. Really appreciate it.
This is lovely. And it's been what, 10 months or so since we were in Barbados. And then we were able to catch up a little bit in real life after that. But I can't believe it's a year has gone by almost. So catch us up. What's up with you? I heard there's a new book that's coming or is already here.
Yeah, thanks, Theo. No, yeah, we caught up last time in real life, which is great, in Barbados. So that was fantastic. It's the first time I've been to the conference with you in forever. So
About
I
time,
really,
right?
yeah, about time, and I really enjoyed that. Yes, I have this year's been, from a writing perspective, it's been I've been really busy. I have two new books that came out this year on AI. The first was called Generative AI in Business, which is for busy executives to understand AI and how they might be able to apply AI as a strategy in their businesses. And then the most recent book that just came out is called Generative AI in Education. And it's a guide for parents and teachers. It's kind of been a passion project of mine to write that particular book as I work with a lot of underserved students, particularly in the Baltimore area and DC, and obviously in South Carolina as well, that don't normally get access to AI tools and to some of the cutting edge technologies that we have today. And then working with both the students and the parents to be able to help AI become, for lack of a better word, a study buddy for them, to help them be able to compete and achieve what they need to achieve, not just as students, but also, as they move on professionally in their various journeys. So that was released also by Springer Nature a week ago. So I'm super happy about both of those books.
So tell me a little bit more, because using generative AI in a school setting has been a sort of divisive topic, if you will. As a parent, I think I've come to the realization that you can't really stop children, right, from trying new things. They always find a way. I remember when the kids were young, we set all kinds of passwords, limit the screen time, limit where they can go. They always find a way to hack. And so we've gotten to the point where the kids are now teenagers, we let them try out, for example, ChatGPT, Claude, all of these new tools, but do it with them so that they understand what these things are doing, what are the limitations, what are the benefits, and why we want them to go a certain way. How has that journey been for you? Because I feel like there are two camps, right? There's the camp where I totally understand from a teacher perspective, like, wait a minute, what are we supposed to do? Do we even know what the kids are using the technology for? Can they learn? Can they learn in the same effective way, right, as they used to? And then on the other camp, it's like, well, let's explore together. But what about resources, right? You touch a little bit on that. So walk us through that thought process.
Yeah, so as you know, I teach kids how to code. And I've been working predominantly in AR and VR, blockchain, are kind of the three technologies I've been running workshops in, particularly in Title I schools around the country. And the goal of that has always been to be able to give populations or underserved communities the access to those technologies. And my philosophy has always been that unlike how the internet was, where many underserved populations are obviously getting or adopting those technologies at the very end and are not the builders, not the architects of that technology. My goal was to be able to help students, particularly underserved students, to be at the forefront of these technologies by starting them now, right? So that was the goal I had. And obviously there's a lot there about accessing technology, and there's a lot of communities I go to that, even though the internet's been around for 35 years, still have no access to the internet, right? Which is very, very sad from an infrastructure perspective. Don't have access to the internet. But as I worked with those particular students and as I met their parents, a lot of the things that I see are, my grandkids are, in a private school in California, and the totally different curriculum and totally different resources have so much access already to AI, and it's actually part of their curriculum. And my oldest granddaughter is in the 3rd grade, so this is something that is in many schools are well thought out and starting to roll out. Certainly, it's not the case in a lot of public schools and schools across the U.S. But what I noticed is that they were, in fact, in some cases, using Gen AI products, right? To Chat GPT. Obviously, they weren't paying for it, things of that nature. Their parents, in many cases, if they had parents, a lot of times they have grandparents, were not even aware of the technology. They hear it in the news and things of that nature. So I saw them trying to use Chat GPT or generative AI tools, and the results they were getting weren't that great because of the fact that they're not as exposed to it. As because it's generative AI, your prompts matter. How you deliver how you write your prompts, how you speak to it matters to get the results that you're looking for. And so also the way they were using it was not necessarily helping them learn, right? Asking a question about Albert Einstein and telling it to write a paper about Albert Einstein doesn't actually help you know who Albert Einstein is and understand the frameworks he used, and what his belief systems were, and things of that nature. Unless you obviously did your own research and wrote your own papers, and that's always been the part about writing is when you write, you obviously learn, right? And when somebody does it for you or something does it for you, then you aren't learning. So schools are right to be very worried about the fact that AI is sometimes used to cheat, not necessarily to learn. And so what I wanted to do was to be able to teach the kids and their parents or grandparents how to actually use AI so that AI becomes someone that they can learn with, that can help them actually tutor them as they do their math homework or as they do any kind of schoolwork. So and in many cases, they don't even have access to a tutor. And AI now can actually become a really good tutor as long as you use it correctly. And so that's the reason why I wrote the book. It's actually not theoretical. It literally takes every grade level from grade 3 to grade 12, took the entire curriculum in the US curriculum, and actually worked through each subject to help kids develop prompts that will actually help them learn the subjects that they were learning. And it makes AI their partner, not their cheat code, right? To be able to do that. And I taught it both to teachers, both to students and to their parents, because a lot of schools won't have or at this point, don't have a Gen AI policy yet at this particular point. So rolling it out to in a bigger context like that wasn't my aim. It was meant specifically for kids and for their parents or grandparents to be able to use as a tool to give them the superpowers that they need to learn, not to cheat. And so that's what the book is all about. It's a very specific, practical guide, example after example, real subjects against a real curriculum and a real grade level, that they can use together. And then I rolled it out over time to in different workshops in different schools to be able to see what the results of those were, just to make sure, everything was working, and then published the book with the help of Springer Nature as that kind of definitive guide to using AI. And I know I'm talking a lot, but it's akin to using a calculator, right? And that's actually my introduction of the book. I started learning how to use a calculator, well, this long time ago. I'm 58 now. I still remember when calculators were banned. Couldn't use a calculator, right? Because everybody thought you were cheating. But to be bluntly honest, I couldn't even use a calculator correctly, right? I could do a couple things in a calculator back then. I could type the word hello, like that, and that was kind of funny. But I could type the word hello, and you could do the basic math and arithmetic, and multiplication, things of that nature. Tell me to do cosine and sine and all the advanced stuff in a calculator. I couldn't do it, right? I couldn't use the trig functions or anything of that nature. Someone had to teach me how to do that, because otherwise, if you just wanted me to cheat and just do, 3 plus 3, that was fine, right? But that's not math. Like at the level that we need to understand math, even to be able to use a calculator effectively, particularly for trig or calculus, you actually need to know trig and calculus, right? And so, Gen AI to me is very similar. If you just let them, or let everybody just have the tool, you'll never learn. It'll just be parroting out something that you don't even know is accurate. But then using it correctly, it actually does help you gain that superpower, not only to help you, complete tasks, but to completely understand a subject much deeper than you could have otherwise.
I like your analogy, and I can relate to it. I'm not that far younger than you. We are both in the 50s. And I remember in school, we were not allowed to use calculators until much later. And now looking at the kids, I remember even a couple of years ago when they were still in sixth grade, I think, they started using calculators in seventh grade. It's like, totally, completely allowed in the classroom exams and all of that. And one time my son basically told me, he said, the tests that they had in school wasn't so much so about understanding the concept, was more so about who knows how to use the calculator to get to the answer. And that kills me, right? Because much of learning is not just to find the answer, it's the path to understand the why and the how, to understand the mechanics underneath certain concepts, and to get to a final point, right? The whole journey of discovery, I feel like is lost. And I love that you're writing the book, and I love that you're targeting parents and students. It reminds me of the work that you used to do when we first met. But that was back in the ARP Foundation, and you were tireless in working with a lot of fintech founders and finding the practical way of teasing out how can we create business models to enable financial security, long-term financial security of low-income families. And I remember that vividly well. You were one of the few people who actually made the magic work, and admire you for it. So what's next after you had generative AI in business, generative AI in education? I feel like there's a theme running there, Paolo.
Um, yeah. The sad part is I'm not really sure what next is. At this particular point, I mean, I'm obviously very, very passionate about access to technologies, and making sure that we have equal access to technology. And it's not just access to technology, but my goal has always been that we have more builders, that people want to build things, right? And my motto has always been learn, build, launch, and then repeat. Right? I mean, you just keep doing that. So that's that's my goal, is to be able to continue to build more builders that are wanting to create cool new things. I think the world of we're just at the very, very beginning of AI and AGI, and as we look even at blockchain and crypto, a lot of these things are going to be um, merging together in ways that we haven't even imagined. I know when you wrote your book on virtual reality and thinking through virtual reality, some of that may not even be possible today, but it will certainly be very, very possible in the future. So continuing to be able um, to promote that use of technology, to be very active in it. I still write code every day. In fact, I was writing code until about 1 o'clock, last night, just working on an AI tool that's used predominantly for folks to be able to help them navigate our very complex U.S. healthcare system. Everything from getting the right care that they need, to making sure they can pay for it, to helping them reduce their bills and so forth. So that's what I will continue to do, is um, to build, and then writing and teaching is obviously a part of that, right? Um, you learn the best when you're learning something new and then trying it out, right? So and that's exactly what I hope to continue to do.
Yeah, I agree. I think we do learn the best when we're learning and then teaching.
Yeah.
I've noticed it with my kids when they were younger. They were both Montessori school, and that was one of the principles that they had in the school, was that they want the older kids to teach the younger kids certain things in the classroom, and that was their philosophy. They said, because this is how they can learn and understand things better, if they can explain it to other people. So I love that. So speaking of caregiving, you just prompted that, and healthcare. Oh God, I don't even know where to start. But I know that that was a topic that you were very passionate about, working with companies, looking at how we can enable better caregiving services, or changing how we're providing the support for caregivers. I have lost track. I'll be honest. I'm the first one to admit that I've lost track of what's going on um, in that whole healthcare caregiving system, because it felt like it was such a I don't even have the right word for it. Convoluted is not a good word for it, but you know what I meant.
Yeah,
it's
for
it's
sure.
it's a mess. It's a mess. Um, what is the latest in happening in being able to use technology to navigate that minefield?
Yeah, thanks for that question. I have been lucky enough to serve in the board of a couple of companies that are focused on caregiving. One of the companies I work with very closely, that's really on the cutting edge of it, is a company called CareLink 360, that has built a device that helps caregivers not only monitor the person they're caring for remotely, but also to be able to, the device actually also engages um, with a person, testing, looking at cognitive functions, tracking eye movement, tracking speech, things of that nature, to be able to determine what the right interventions are next, to be able to help that person, when they're as they experience cognitive decline, and also obviously help the caregiver to be able to provide the care, and not just the family caregivers, which are the brunt of who provide that particular support for particularly folks that are aging, but also the healthcare ecosystem that supports not just the caregiver, but also the person who is being cared for. Again, also not just medically, but also financially and emotionally. Those are kind of the key areas. So there's been a lot of work. I work with a lot of startups actually that are launching caregiving products, everything from providing emotional support and using a kind of a Gen AI tool to the caregiver, as well as companies that are providing the financial and the social care that you need to be able to do, to function as a caregiver and to be able to meet the needs also of the caregiver. So, that ecosystem continues to be strong. Lots of great organizations are continuing to focus and invest in it. Organizations like CareBridge, for instance, are just doing amazing, phenomenal work, in that particular area. And then just recently, I had the chance to work with the incoming administration, or at least have a discussion with the incoming administration around caregiving, and kind of what the policies might be moving forward as a new administration takes over. And I think some areas obviously are in significant need of reform. Caregiving is extremely expensive. Hiring caregivers are expensive. So there's a lot of reform that we need to do in the workforce that would pay our caregivers more. Those who are actually professional caregivers, that would attract them to that profession and would be able to, pay them wages that are not just living wages, but wages that are equal to the type of work that they do and the type of care that they provide. It's so super important. So there's areas in workforce that are critical to improve. And then the other area is the way we deliver care here. A lot of the burden of care is with the families, and I talk to many families of caregivers. I'm a caregiver myself for my 88-year-old mom, and I can tell you that many caregivers don't think that this is a burden in any stretch of the imagination. They want to do this and feel privileged that they have the opportunity to care for, someone they love as that person ages. But we do know that practically they have a significant financial and emotional burden, even the physical burden as they care for, an aging older adult. And so there is that system right now is so focused on kind of the management of the system is focused just really on one agency and on one particular program. Long-term care in the United States is basically managed through Medicaid. And so I think there's some opportunities for reform there, and opportunities to be able to support financially the family caregivers who are obviously providing a lot of this economic support that isn't even measured in many cases, and how it impacts our economy. So I think there's some areas of reform that I'm super interested in, that continue want to focus on. And then, as you know, I'm a technologist. So on the technology side, I'm so encouraged by the things that we can do that can assist not just the caregiver, but also the person who's being cared for. With Gen AI, obviously with AI, with robotics, yes, it can't replace a human at the end of the day, but it can certainly assist, and make our lives easier. So if we try to make our lives easier by making up all kinds of technologies to help us bank better, or to help us, pick our food better, and all those different things, which I call around the edges, that the part of caring and being able to help us care better, the technology there, I think, is we're just at the forefront of that. And I'm so excited about all the organizations, companies, startups that are investing heavily to make that a reality.
You remind me of our conversation back when you were first on the show. I didn't realize it was that long ago, but it was back in February 2019. I just looked it up. Gosh, lots of things have changed. And I remember back then, we were looking at companies, we were looking at fintech companies we're also looking at caregiving companies. We're looking at all kinds of tech. For example, remember the ones to dispense medication, the very
Yeah.
bulky ones? And it was so expensive. There were a few that looked really interesting, but at that time the tech was not ready and definitely not the price point in the market. And it feels like much has changed since then. Technology has definitely advanced more, but it also feels like much has not changed.
Mm.
There are still a lot of ideas, a lot of wonderful innovators keep trying to poke at the system to make things work. And I absolutely don't feel like I want to be a downer, but I don't know if we would be able to innovate ourselves out from this big mess that we find ourselves in. I mean, population getting older is not something new, right? Every country experiencing through that, having challenges with independent living and getting access and help to both the caregivers and the older adults is a challenge that many countries face. What we do have an advantage in this country is resources and people. I do hope that I'm trying to draw on your positive energy because I definitely need that. I do hope that we can build on it and I can be as optimistic as you are. I still feel like there's a lot of basic needs, right, that still has not been solved. Some of the things that we had touched on 6, 7 years ago was about poverty, about how many older adults are, more than twice as many women compared to older men who are living in poverty. And the stats that I've seen lately has not changed that much. I feel like there's still work to be done.
Oh yeah, there's absolutely a ton of work to be done. I mean, and you're right. I mean, when we when we first worked on this thing and started working to get it 7 years ago, I mean, in many cases, the rate of poverty of the poverty levels of older adults have actually increased versus decreased. I know COVID had a lot to do with that. Structurally, there's still a lot of things that are completely wrong, not just in the U.S., but as we look at the global population and these challenges around caregiving, around financial equity are challenges that we see everywhere. I don't think anybody has actually has solved that. Very few, very few. There are some good case studies there that I can look at that are seeing improvement. I can point to Mexico, for instance, as one of the countries that have significantly reduced their poverty levels even after COVID. And there's just models that we can look at there, which models that we can look at in Brazil and other countries that I think we should continue to do so. But at the practical level, right? How do we solve these issues? I do believe that we can innovate out of it, but I don't think we can innovate it. We can do that alone. Right. I think we need a lot of the innovation is not just the tech entrepreneur, the startup that is the startup nonprofit that's trying to solve these issues, because it's just not about it. It's not just about tech. There's a lot of great nonprofits that are addressing these issues and are trying to do wonderful, innovative things here. But it does require a partnership also with government to structurally make these changes and to continue to work on them. And that I wish there was a magic wand and we could solve these problems quickly and ride off in the sunset and I won't have a job afterwards. But that isn't the case. What I'm encouraged about is that as I work with different I am working now more with more and more startups in this space than ever before that are looking not just for the social aspects of things, but also for the profit. And I always say, whenever there's a market, when there's supply and demand, that is, and it's consumer driven, then we have the opportunity to succeed and to be able to scale. And so I'm starting to see just the activity, but also the thought process around looking at many of our systems that are actually not consumer driven to become much more consumer driven. And once they become consumer driven, I think, or more consumer driven, then it gives more and more incentives for innovators to go into the space and to be able to meet this particular market and to be able to scale and solve these particular problems. So I'm encouraged only because I work with so many of the companies and I see so many launching. And I'm also hearing these discussions both in government, not just in the US, but countries that you never have thought would think through or have actually raised these issues or starting to raise these issues. And, I worked with folks in the Philippines, for instance, that are now very concerned about aging and about building a better aging infrastructure, very concerned about issues around aging and poverty that 6 years ago they wouldn't even think about, and that wasn't even a part of the agenda. So there's a bad news to that. The bad news is that it's obviously becoming part of the agenda because of the fact that now you're seeing some of the problems, right? But the positive side of it is that at least we're trying to address it now, and that it's becoming much more imperative that we address these particular issues. And I'm also hopeful that a lot of these challenges, particularly with advancements in technology, advancements in AI, advancements in data science, will give us the tools to actually solve these issues once and for all. So I remain very, very optimistic, about the future. But I guess that's just who I am.
That's why I talk to you every now and then, because I'm like, all right, this is why I need help. All right, Paolo, what do we have positive? But I do appreciate that. It's a good balance to have. We do often say that with the advancement in AI, we could potentially unearth solutions for challenging problems that we couldn't even tackle, we couldn't even think about tackling before, such as around dementia, aging, and all of the other challenges that comes with more candles in your birthday cake. So I do think that eventually we will get there, and that would require, as you say, innovators and builders, nonprofits, partnerships with governments, as well as people like you who don't lose hope, who keep fighting for the ones that we don't often think about. So for that, thank you so much, Paolo. Appreciate it, and always great to hear from you. We will get there. Yeah, we will get there eventually.
Yeah, we certainly will. Thank you again for having me on your show, Theo. It's always fun, and it's hope that we can do this in person very soon.
We will do that. Before I let you go, generative AI in business and generative AI in education, where do our listeners find your books?
Yeah, both of the books are published by Springer Nature, a press. And you could find them. The Generative AI in Education is now officially launched on Amazon as well. So you could go to Springer Nature, just search for Springer Nature and search for the book Generative AI in Education, and you should be able to buy the book from Springer. It's but also from Amazon and from all the other fun places where we like to buy our books, either in person or online. Just to make a plug for the book, the Generative AI in Education book is a book I think it's the only book I've actually ever written where I think everybody needs it. All the other stuff is like, if you want to really read that and go to sleep, that's fine. And then Generative AI in business is out actually officially next week.
Okay.
And that could also be found on Springer Nature, and you could pre-order the book on Amazon, today.
Wow. Amazing. You are on a roll, my friend. All right. Next time, I think when you and I talk, you probably would have another 2 books done already. Can't keep up with you, but lovely to hear. And I'll also put the link in the show notes. And thank you so much for your time, Paolo. Appreciate
Awesome.
it.
Thanks so much, Theo. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And for the rest of our listeners, thank you so much for joining us for another episode of One Vision. We will talk to you all next week.